how do we make sure online dating conversations, especially when somebody isn't giving us much to work with, doesn't turn into an interview style exchange? All right, I think there's a couple of core concepts. First off, very simple, practical. Force yourself to never ask more than 2 questions in a row. Okay, if you ask a question, you're like, hey, why do you love this thing? And then she's opening up to you and you're like, great, well, like what got you into it in the first place? And now she's opening up. I think you should try to make a statement in return. Okay, so then it just feels a little bit more natural and organic. But also when somebody, it often gets in an interview style because you're asking so many questions and the person feels like they're on, like, have to perform. And by making a statement back, you actually make them feel like, okay, this person's giving back to me. They're being vulnerable, and also giving them content to elaborate from about you or to discuss with you. So in general, I think just simple to start is what a rule I call like question, question, statement. At most 1 or 2 questions in a row before you try to relate back with a statement. That'll help the other person feel like you're actually opening up and not judging them and not interviewing them. And then it gives them content to work from as well. 2, I think when you are asking questions or making these statements, check in with yourself if you're asking about data. Are you asking about data or are you asking about emotion? We're talking about emotion, and especially like keeping it open-ended. So you see a woman's a nurse or she's talking about it. If you ask something like, what's your schedule at nursing? Do you do the like 3 days on thing? And they're going to be like, yep. And then you're like, cool. Like, so then like, when do you usually get off or do you get much vacation? And they're like, yeah, I do here in my 5 weeks. And there's not much to relate off. Okay. And I think the second you ask questions that evoke emotion from them, why do they love nursing? What motivates them? Why do they do it? What's a funny story they've had? What's a hard day they've had? Do they imagine themselves continuing to do it and why? Okay. And leaving it open-ended, not just yes or no and not just data, but asking more framing questions around emotion, it forces people to give you content, right? Or not forces, it encourages them to give you content. And that'll open up the conversation a lot more, right? If I'm like, tell me like, I can't imagine. So let me put them together. I'll make a statement about nursing and then I'll ask an emotional question. And I'll say, yeah, like I actually thought about becoming a nurse for a while because my brother was, but I realized like I just can't deal with like pain all the time. It's really heartbreaking. Like how do you like go in every day and like just keep a positive attitude? Okay, it doesn't always have to be sad emotion, but I'm actually genuinely curious about that, right? That is going to make her feel like, okay, this person's actually caring. They're being real. They're asking me something that I can like talk about my experience. And that's going to give a lot more conversation fodder to open it up. And last but not least, I think always, guys with online dating, they think like they have to just follow what's being said or what's on a profile. So they just are like, cool, we're talking about this. I just got to go with the flow and keep going and keep going, keep going. And you run out of stuff to say. Think about 1 or 2 topics or questions that are really important to you or that you're passionate about or that you've been reading about in the last 2 weeks, just subjects. So like for me, I love basically ask topics that play to your strengths and that you actually care about or could talk really easily about. So for me, it could be virtual reality and technology, psychology, self-development, hiking and outdoors, whatever. Okay, writing, uh, fantasy novels for one of you on there that I know. Okay. And you think that you need like a perfect moment to ask it, but sometimes in normal conversation, like we do in person, it's fine to be like, hey, so tell me, I'm a big lit nerd. Are you like, what kind of fantasy books are you into? Or like, what's your favorite genre? Right. And just steer the conversation into something that you actually care about and that plays to your strengths rather than just going with the flow the entire time. Because that is quite tough, especially nowadays. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the last year, like women just write less and less and less on their profiles. So that's what I think makes it tough. And yeah, right? So question, question, statement. Make sure the questions and the statements you are making are much more around the emotion of things than just the data of things. And then when you're running out of a topic or you feel like I don't know where to take this, just segue into something that you actually care about. Even if it's something just to start the conversation, like, hey, did you see the new Netflix special White Stalker? What did you think of it? If so, what did you think of it? And just bridge into something you care about, investigative discovery, documentaries, and things like that, and pull it into something new. It doesn't need to be something on our profile or something that's being said. Those are probably my three biggest tips there.